The fluorescent light in Dr. Sterling's office flickered softly, humming like a secret about to be revealed. Martha Caldwell sat on the examination table, her weathered hands resting gently on her purse, the same purse she'd carried for 20 years, a gift from her late husband, Harold. For a 70-year-old woman, she looked strong, composed. Her silver hair was neatly pinned, her cardigan ironed to perfection. But inside, she felt an unease she couldn't name. Dr. Elliot Sterling had been her physician for over 15 years, a man she trusted with her life. Yet today, he couldn't look her in the eye. His hands trembled slightly as he wrapped the blood pressure cuff around her arm. "Everything looks fine, Mrs. Caldwell," he said, his voice tight, unnatural. "Your heart's strong, cholesterol's good. You're in excellent shape for your age." She smiled faintly. "Well, that's good news, doctor. My son Benjamin worries too much." But instead of his usual warm nod, Dr. Sterling hesitated. His Adam's apple bobbed as if he were swallowing back words he wasn't supposed to say. When he finally spoke, his tone was oddly formal. "Family is complicated, Mrs. Caldwell. Sometimes, not everything is as it seems." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, as she reached for her purse to leave, his hand brushed hers, a fleeting contact, but deliberate. He slipped something inside the bag, so quickly she almost thought she'd imagined it. "Take care of yourself," he said, forcing a smile. "And remember, don't ignore your instincts." There was something in his eyes, fear. Real fear. Martha walked out of the clinic into the soft gray drizzle of a Tuesday afternoon. Her pulse was racing, her thoughts tangled. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, his trembling hand, his warning tone. When she finally got into the cab, she opened her purse and found it, a small folded note, tucked beneath her checkbook. Her heart stuttered as she unfolded it. "Don't go home. Run." The handwriting was unmistakably Dr. Sterling's. Sharp. Precise. Urgent. Her breath caught in her throat. For a long moment, she sat frozen, staring at the words as if they were a hallucination. Was this a joke? Some kind of mistake? Why would her doctor, a man she trusted like family, tell her not to go home? The cab driver's voice jolted her back. "Ma'am? Where to?" "Home," she whispered automatically, then hesitated. Her instinct screamed otherwise, but habit was stronger. Home, the house she'd shared with Harold, the home where she'd raised Benjamin. Her safe place. Or so she thought. As the cab rolled through the familiar suburban streets, the world outside seemed distorted, too quiet, too still. Even the rain sounded heavier than usual. By the time she stepped onto her front porch, her stomach churned with unease. Inside, she heard muffled voices, Benjamin's deep tone, Eleanor's sharper one, and Olivia's soft laughter. The family was gathered in the living room, papers spread across the coffee table. The moment she entered, the conversation stopped. Benjamin smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mom. You're home early. How was the appointment?" "Fine," she replied, studying their faces. "Dr. Sterling said I'm in perfect health." Eleanor's hand twitched. She quickly shoved a stack of documents into a folder. "That's wonderful," she said, her voice thin. "You must be relieved." Something in her tone felt wrong. Too rehearsed. Martha noticed a faint smell of her late husband's cologne, but Harold had been gone for 10 years. The scent wasn't from memory, it came from the den. Her gaze drifted toward the door, slightly ajar. On the desk inside, she caught a glimpse of something that shouldn't have been there, an official-looking form with her name at the top. She took a step closer, but Benjamin quickly blocked her view. "Mom, you should rest," he said smoothly. "You've had a long day." Her pulse spiked. The note in her purse seemed to burn against her side. That night, dinner was silent. Eleanor's fork scraped against her plate, Olivia avoided eye contact. Benjamin made small talk about the weather, but his voice sounded hollow. When Martha excused herself early and went upstairs, she didn't undress or sleep. She sat in the dark, listening. At 2 a.m., faint whispers floated up from the kitchen. "She's fine," Eleanor's voice hissed. "The doctor didn't sign anything." "Relax," Benjamin replied. "We'll find someone else. If she refuses to go quietly, we'll make her." Martha's breath hitched. "Make her?" She pressed her ear to the vent, trembling. "The house is worth nearly $500,000, Eleanor continued. Her savings, pension, insurance, enough for all of us to live comfortably. We just need that incompetency certification." Olivia's young voice chimed in, hesitant. "But isn't that illegal?" "Don't be naive," Eleanor snapped. "We're her family. We know what's best." Martha's entire body went cold. Her son, the boy she'd adopted, raised, sacrificed everything for, was plotting to declare her insane. The daughter-in-law she'd treated like her own was helping him. And her granddaughter, her sweet Olivia, was sitting there listening. The words from Dr. Sterling's note flashed before her eyes. "Don't go home. Run." Her mind spun. Every detail from the past few months suddenly made sense: Benjamin's constant questions about her will, Eleanor insisting she stop handling her finances, Olivia asking strange questions about what happens when people get old. They weren't worried about her. They were preparing for her downfall. Martha stumbled to her nightstand, clutching the photo of her late husband. "Oh, Harold," she whispered through tears. "What have they done to us?" Her reflection in the mirror was pale, haunted, a woman betrayed by her own blood. For the first time in her life, Martha Caldwell felt truly alone. Not widowed. Not aging. Not lonely. Hunted. Downstairs, the refrigerator door closed. Footsteps creaked on the stairs. She held her breath, clutching the note in her trembling hands. Morning sunlight seeped weakly through the curtains, yet the house felt colder than any winter she'd known. Martha sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing the same cardigan from the night before, her hands wrapped tightly around Dr. Sterling's note as if it were a lifeline. "Don't go home. Run." Now, she understood why. Downstairs, laughter erupted. Benjamin's voice, the same boy who once called her mommy with a lisp, was joking about something with Eleanor. The sound pierced through her like a blade. She had raised that voice. She had fed it, protected it, sacrificed everything for it. And now it belonged to a stranger. Martha closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw Benjamin at age 7, wearing the little blue coat she'd sewn from Harold's old uniform jacket. "When I grow up, I'll buy you a big house, Mama," he'd promised, grinning with a missing front tooth. That same house now was the prize in his scheme. The memories clawed at her chest. After Harold's death 10 years ago, she had told herself she was lucky to still have Benjamin, Eleanor, and sweet little Olivia. They became her whole world. She stopped traveling, sold her jewelry to help Benjamin buy his business, and moved into the guest room when Eleanor said, "It's more convenient this way, Mom. We'll take care of you." Take care of you. Those words had felt like love back then. Now they sounded like a threat. She walked slowly to the window. Outside, the garden Harold had planted was dying, roses choked by weeds, the fountain silent. A metaphor, she thought grimly. Everything Harold built was being eaten alive. Her gaze drifted to the family photos lining the hallway. There was Benjamin in his graduation gown. She had worked double shifts for months to afford his tuition. There was Olivia as a baby. She had stayed up through countless nights so Eleanor could rest. There was a photo of all of them on the porch last Christmas, smiling. She realized, with a shudder, that she had been the only one smiling sincerely. The ache in her chest grew heavier, spreading like poison. She walked into the living room. The smell of Eleanor's perfume, too strong, too artificial, lingered in the air. On the coffee table were papers again, half hidden under magazines. She picked one up. It was a power of attorney draft. Her name typed neatly across the top. At the bottom, a signature that wasn't hers. Her knees buckled. She dropped into the chair, the paper shaking in her hand. A wave of nausea hit her, cold and violent. That was when Eleanor entered the room. "Oh, Mom," she said with a startled smile. "I didn't know you were awake." Martha looked up, her voice trembling. "What is this?" Eleanor's eyes flicked to the paper, then back to Martha with a syrupy calm. "It's just some legal preparation. You know, in case something happens." "In case what happens?" Martha's voice cracked. Eleanor sighed, tilting her head the way she always did when she pretended to be patient. "Benjamin worries about you. You forget things sometimes. We're just trying to make things easier for everyone." "I don't forget." Martha snapped, slamming her palm on the table. "I remember everything, every lie you've told me, every kindness you've faked." Eleanor's mask slipped for a second, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. "Mom, please," she said softly. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're doing what's best for you." "What's best for me?" Martha whispered, "or what's best for you?" Their eyes locked. For the first time, Martha saw her daughter-in-law for what she truly was, not a caregiver, not a companion, but a predator wearing a smile. She turned and climbed the stairs, gripping the banister like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. In her room, she sat down at Harold's old desk and opened the top drawer. Inside was his fountain pen, still stained with blue ink. He used to write her love notes on Sunday mornings. "You make the world quiet, Martha." Now her world was nothing but noise, whispers, deceit, and laughter in the dark. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered to the empty room, "I gave them everything, Harold. Everything." The walls felt like they were closing in. That evening, Olivia came in quietly, carrying a tray of soup. "Grandma, you didn't eat lunch," she said. Martha looked at her granddaughter's young face, innocent, or perhaps pretending to be. "Olivia," she asked gently, "do you know what your parents are planning?" Olivia froze, her eyes darting away. "What do you mean?" "Don't lie to me, sweetheart." The girl hesitated, then whispered, they think you need help." "Help," Martha repeated bitterly. "Is that what they call it now? Taking my home? My life?" "Grandma, please," Olivia said, setting the tray down. "Don't make them angry. It's easier if you just go along with it." The words stabbed her deeper than anything before. Even Olivia, the one person she thought might stand by her, was telling her to surrender. When Olivia left, Martha broke down completely. She clutched the note from Dr. Sterling and sobbed until her chest ached. Every breath felt like drowning. Every heartbeat, a reminder that she was alive in a world that had already buried her. She thought of the nights she stayed awake when Benjamin had a fever. Of the time she pawned her wedding ring to buy him his first car. Of the mornings she made pancakes shaped like hearts for Olivia. All of it, forgotten. Erased. In its place, forged papers. Lies. Betrayal. When night fell again, Martha sat in the dark, staring at the reflection in her mirror. Her face, once kind, soft, now looked ghostly, hollowed by grief. "I don't know who you are anymore," she whispered to the photo of her son. "But you're not the boy I raised." She folded Dr. Sterling's note one last time and tucked it into her pocket. Her decision was made. By morning, she would be gone. But the part of her that had believed in family, in love, in blood, that part had already died. The morning came gray and cold, yet Martha felt strangely calm. There was no fear left in her, no shaking hands or racing heart, only silence. A silence sharper than any scream. She stood in her bedroom, the packed suitcase at her feet. In her pocket, Dr. Sterling's note was folded neatly beside her late husband's fountain pen. It wasn't just a warning anymore, it was a command. She glanced around the room one last time. The floral wallpaper Harold had chosen. The old dresser that smelled faintly of cedar. The mirror where she had once brushed her hair while Olivia laughed behind her. It all felt foreign now, like walking through a museum of someone else's life. Downstairs, she could hear Benjamin's footsteps. His voice drifted up faintly, giving orders to Eleanor. "We'll need to call the bank again today. Tell them Mom's not been well lately. Maybe they'll listen this time." Her blood boiled. He still thought she was asleep. He still thought she was weak. Not anymore. When the clock struck 5, she opened her bedroom window and slipped out quietly, her shoes barely making a sound on the dew-covered grass. The cab she had called the night before was waiting at the end of the street. "Airport?" the driver asked. "No," Martha said, voice steady. "Downtown. Grand Imperial Hotel." As the car pulled away, she looked back only once. Through the fog, the outline of her house seemed to shrink. The place that once symbolized family now looked like a cage she had finally escaped. At the hotel, she checked in under her maiden name, Martha Whitaker. She hadn't used that name in over 50 years. Saying it aloud felt like reclaiming a lost part of herself. The receptionist smiled politely. "How long will you be staying with us, Ms. Whitaker?" "As long as it takes," Martha replied. Her suite was elegant, high ceilings, gold curtains, a view of the city bathed in early sunlight. She set her suitcase down, opened the curtains wide, and breathed deeply. Freedom. It smelled like rain and new beginnings. But there was no time to waste. She took out her small notebook, the one where Harold used to write grocery lists, and began a new list of her own. Plan, the Caldwell operation. Contact Dr. Graham Montgomery, attorney. Verify secret account in Zurich. Record every phone call with Benjamin. Document all fraudulent activities. Expose them, legally and publicly. She underlined the last word twice, publicly. Her phone buzzed. "Benjamin. Mom, where are you?" "Eleanor's worried sick." Martha smiled faintly. The performance had begun. She answered, keeping her tone perfectly calm. "I just needed a little air, Benjamin. Don't worry." "Air? It's 7 in the morning. Why didn't you tell us?" "You've all been so busy," she said softly. "I didn't want to disturb you." A pause. Then his voice shifted, still pretending to care, but with a sharp edge underneath. "Mom, you shouldn't wander around alone. You could get confused." Martha's jaw tightened. "Confused? Oh, don't worry, son. My mind has never been clearer." She hung up. Then she turned on her phone's recorder. From now on, every word, every lie, every manipulation would be evidence. At 9 a.m., she walked into the office of Montgomery and Associates, one of the city's most prestigious law firms. The receptionist blinked when she saw her, elegant, poised, dressed in a black coat and pearl earrings. Not at all the frail grandmother Benjamin described to the bank. Dr. Graham Montgomery himself came out to greet her. "Mrs. Caldwell, or shall I say Ms. Whitaker?" Dr. Sterling called ahead. "You have quite a situation." "I intend to fix it," Martha said simply. In his office, she laid everything on the table, the forged documents, the note, the recordings she had made in secret, even a copy of her will. Dr. Montgomery listened in silence, then leaned back, visibly impressed. "Mrs. Caldwell, what your family is attempting constitutes elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. We can take them down, but we'll need patience." "Patience," she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "That's one thing I have plenty of." They began to map out the strategy. Phase 1, secure her finances, lock the accounts, transfer her assets under legal protection. Phase 2, build evidence, catch Benjamin and Eleanor in their own lies. Phase 3, public exposure. When she left the office, it was raining again, but Martha didn't open her umbrella. The rain felt cleansing, washing away the fear that had clung to her for months. That evening, she went to a small electronics store and bought a voice recorder, a spare phone, and a security drive. The young clerk tried to make small talk, asking, "You starting a podcast or something?" Martha smiled. "Something like that." Back at the hotel, she rehearsed her new identity, calm, confident, untouchable. She recorded a video, her voice steady as she looked into the camera. My name is Martha Caldwell. I am 70 years old. And if anything happens to me, this recording will prove who's responsible. She saved it under the name insurance. The next morning, she called Eleanor. Her daughter-in-law's voice was sweet poison. Oh, Mom, where have you been? We've been so worried. I know, Martha said. That's why I'm calling. I've been thinking about my future. About what happens if I get sick. A pause. Eleanor's tone shifted, greedy curiosity barely hidden. Oh? What kind of arrangements? I want to make sure Benjamin and Olivia are provided for, Martha continued smoothly. Maybe I'll meet with the bank tomorrow. That's wonderful, Mom. I can come with you, make sure. No need, Martha cut in gently. I've already scheduled the meeting. I just wanted to tell you, thank you. For always looking out for me. When she ended the call, she let out a slow exhale. Her hands no longer trembled. Now she understood the game, and she was going to win it by playing it better than any of them. Later that night, as the city lights glowed beneath her window, Martha opened Harold's old notebook again and began to write. They think I'm weak because I'm old. They think I'm blind because I trusted. But they've forgotten, a mother never forgets. Tomorrow, the hunter becomes the hunted. She closed the book, placed it beside her bed, and turned off the lamp. For the first time in months, Martha Caldwell slept peacefully, not as a victim, but as a woman sharpening her vengeance in silence. The day Martha decided to face them, the city sky was heavy with clouds, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. She dressed carefully, not as a frightened old woman, but as a soldier ready for battle. A black wool suit, pearl earrings, her hair pinned high. In the mirror, she saw the ghost of her younger self, the woman who once believed love could fix anything. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone sharper, steadier, and infinitely more dangerous. She took a deep breath and slipped Dr. Sterling's note into her purse, not out of fear, but as a reminder of where it all began. That morning, her family was scheduled to meet a real estate agent at Richardson and Associates Realty. Benjamin had told the agent he possessed power of attorney over his ailing mother and wanted to sell her home quickly. What Benjamin didn't know was that Martha had called the same office the night before, and reserved the same appointment under her own name. When she arrived, the receptionist looked startled. Mrs. Caldwell? You're early. Good, Martha said, her voice calm. So are the people trying to steal from me? The receptionist blinked, unsure how to respond. Then, as the clock struck 11, the glass doors opened, and in walked Benjamin, Eleanor, and Olivia, dressed in their finest clothes. They didn't notice her at first. Eleanor was laughing, touching Benjamin's arm. Olivia trailed behind, her face pale. They froze when they saw Martha standing in the lobby. And Mom? Benjamin stammered. What are you doing here? Martha smiled thinly. Oh, you know me, Benjamin. Always early for important meetings. I just didn't realize we'd scheduled the same one. The color drained from Eleanor's face. The real estate agent, a polite man in a navy suit, stepped forward, confused. Excuse me, are you all here regarding the same property? Yes, Martha replied before Benjamin could speak. My house. Benjamin forced a laugh, his voice trembling. Mom, you shouldn't be here. You've been under a lot of stress lately. Stress, she said softly. I'm not the one trying to sell a house that doesn't belong to me. She turned to the agent. You see, my son here is claiming he has the legal right to sell my property, without my consent. I'd like to see the documentation, if you don't mind. Benjamin's jaw tightened. Mom, let's not make a scene. Oh, darling, she said, her tone icy, the scene has already been made. She reached into her purse, took out her phone, and hit play. From the speaker, Benjamin's voice filled the lobby. We'll make her lose her mind. Switch her medication. Hide her things. In a month, any doctor will certify she's mentally ill. The room went dead silent. Eleanor gasped, clutching Benjamin's arm. She's lying. That recording is fake. Fake? Martha repeated, raising an eyebrow. Then perhaps we should let the lawyers decide. Right on cue, two men in tailored suits entered, representatives from Dr. Graham Montgomery's firm. One held a folder of legal documents, the other carried a portable recorder. Mrs. Caldwell, the first lawyer said respectfully, "We've brought the evidence you requested." Martha turned to the agent. "These gentlemen represent my interests. Please note that no one here has power of attorney over me, nor any legal claim to my assets. Any attempt to act otherwise is considered fraud." Benjamin's voice cracked. "Mom, please. Let's talk privately." "There is no privacy left between us," she said quietly. "You shattered that the moment you plotted against me." Eleanor began to cry, but they were tears of panic, not remorse. "We were just trying to help you. You can't live alone forever." Martha's calm broke, her voice rising with decades of swallowed pain. "Help me? By stealing my house? My savings? By declaring me insane so you could live off the money your father and I earned? You call that help?" Her voice echoed through the marble lobby. Clients, receptionists, and even the security guard had stopped to listen. Olivia stood motionless, tears brimming in her eyes. Benjamin clenched his fists. "You've always been dramatic, Mom. You don't know what you're talking about. You need rest." "I need justice," she said simply. The lawyer beside her spoke up. "Mrs. Caldwell is of sound mind, verified by 3 independent doctors. We also have proof of financial fraud, forged documents, and recorded evidence of conspiracy." The agent looked horrified. I think this meeting is over." "No," Martha said, stepping closer to her son. "This is just the beginning." She pulled another document from her folder, a cease and desist order, and handed it to Benjamin. "Effective immediately, you are barred from accessing any of my accounts, properties, or medical information. Try, and you'll be in handcuffs before you can blink." Benjamin's face twisted with rage. "You can't do this to me." "I already did," Martha whispered. The 2 lawyers escorted the family out as murmurs rippled through the office. Martha stood still, her heartbeat steady, her eyes fixed on the glass doors closing behind them. For the first time in years, she felt powerful. That night, she returned to her hotel suite. The city lights shimmered below, but her thoughts were far from the skyline. She poured herself a glass of red wine and sat by the window, watching her reflection. She had done it, not with violence or screaming, but with precision. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Montgomery. "FBI confirmed, Paul Hayes is an informant. Your family's payment to him is on record. They'll face federal charges." Martha smiled faintly. Justice, at last, was beginning to turn its wheels. But her heart wasn't light. Justice didn't erase betrayal, it merely exposed it. She opened her notebook and wrote. "Justice is not revenge. It's truth spoken aloud when lies have ruled too long. Today, I didn't just protect my home, I reclaimed my voice." Later that week, the news broke. Local family charged an elder fraud conspiracy after viral exposure. The headlines flooded the internet. Her livestream, posted anonymously by her lawyer's team, hit 500,000 views. Comments poured in, messages from other seniors thanking her for her courage, calling her a hero. She didn't feel like one. She felt tired, deeply, profoundly tired. But when Olivia came to see her days later, standing awkwardly in the doorway, Martha didn't turn her away. "Grandma," the girl whispered, "I didn't stop them. I didn't protect you." Martha's voice softened. "No. But you're here now. That's a start." They stood in silence, the weight of truth between them, heavy, but cleansing. Outside, thunder rolled across the night sky. Inside, for the first time in years, Martha Caldwell felt safe. Not because justice had been served, but because she had served it herself. 6 months had passed since the verdict, and spring had come early that year. The air outside Martha's new home smelled of lilacs and cut grass, the smell of beginnings. Her new house was smaller than the old one, tucked away at the edge of town. No marble floors, no antique chandeliers, just sunlight, space, and silence. And for Martha, silence was no longer frightening. It was freedom. She stood in her garden wearing Harold's old straw hat, trimming the rose bushes that had begun to bloom again. The thorns nicked her fingers, but she didn't mind. Pain, she thought, was proof of life. Behind her, laughter echoed. Olivia was sitting cross-legged on the grass, her belly softly rounded under a white sundress, a law textbook open beside her. "Grandma," she called, smiling, "you're supposed to be resting, not working." Martha chuckled, wiping her hands on her apron. "I rested for 70 years, my dear. Now I finally get to live." Olivia giggled and went back to her notes. She had decided to study law, elder protection law, after the trial. "Someone needs to make sure this never happens to anyone else," she had said. And Martha, hearing those words, had felt something she hadn't in years: pride. Inside the house, sunlight streamed through lace curtains. On the mantel stood only 3 framed photos, not of her wedding, nor of Benjamin. Those were gone. One photo was of Harold, smiling in his gardening hat. One was of Olivia on her graduation day, her eyes full of hope. And the third was of Martha herself, standing outside the courthouse, head held high, her eyes clear. Next to the frames was a small plaque engraved with the words she'd once written in her notebook. "Justice is not revenge. It's truth, spoken aloud." The trial had ended with justice, Benjamin sentenced to 12 years, Eleanor to 10. The headlines had faded now, replaced by new scandals, new faces. But for those who had watched the story unfold, Martha Caldwell had become a symbol, the grandmother who fought back, who refused to be erased. She had turned her pain into purpose. With the settlement she won, she created the Silver Shield Foundation, a charity offering free legal aid to elderly victims of abuse. Her first donation came from Dr. Graham Montgomery himself. The second came from Dr. Sterling, the man who had risked his career to save her. "Without you," she'd told him during a quiet lunch at the same cafe where they used to talk about her health, "I might never have known the truth." He smiled gently. "You knew it, Martha. You just needed someone to remind you that you weren't crazy for seeing it." She laughed softly, a sound that used to feel foreign, but now came easily. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she still thought of Benjamin. Of the boy who once clung to her leg in the rain, whispering, "Don't leave me, Mama." Of the man who had chosen greed over love. Did she forgive him? She wasn't sure. Forgiveness, she had learned, wasn't a gift you gave others, it was a door you opened for yourself. She had left his letters unopened, each one stacked neatly in a wooden box she never touched. She didn't hate him, she simply refused to let him back into the space she'd rebuilt with so much pain. Some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. One afternoon, a journalist from a local newspaper came to interview her about the Silver Shield Foundation. He was young, nervous, and terribly earnest. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, adjusting his glasses, "people all over the country talk about your courage. How did you find the strength to stand up to your own family?" Martha smiled, setting her teacup down. "Strength doesn't come from anger," she said quietly. "It comes from the moment you realize you've been living for everyone else but yourself, and you finally decide to stop." The journalist nodded, typing furiously. "And if you could say one thing to others who feel trapped like you once did?" She looked out the window, at Olivia reading under the oak tree, the afternoon sun painting everything gold. "I'd tell them," she said, "that blood may make you related, but loyalty makes you family. And sometimes, to protect your peace, you have to choose yourself, even if it means walking alone." Later that evening, as dusk settled, Martha walked barefoot through her garden. Fireflies flickered in the tall grass, and the sound of crickets filled the air. She stopped by the small stone bench Harold had carved decades ago and sat down. The sky was streaked with lavender and gold. Somewhere far away, church bells were ringing. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We made it, Harold." The wind rustled through the leaves, almost like a reply. She thought of the woman she had been, the one who begged for love, who mistook silence for peace, who believed age made her invisible. That woman was gone. In her place was someone reborn. She wasn't the victim anymore. She wasn't even the survivor. She was the author of her story, her choices, her freedom. Martha reached for her notebook, the same one that had carried every fear, every plan, every truth. She opened to the last page and wrote in a steady hand. "I am no longer running. The storm is over. And I have finally come home." She set the notebook aside and looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, she didn't feel haunted. She didn't feel alone. She felt whole. A quiet smile touched her lips. Tomorrow, she and Olivia would visit a local nursing home, not to be locked away, but to speak to other seniors, to tell them their stories mattered too. There would be laughter. There would be hope. And somewhere, beyond the horizon, the night whispered the same words that had saved her life months ago. Not as a warning this time, but as a promise. Run, toward the light.